All right, welcome back, everybody. This is another of the series of interviews getting ready for the September Every Second Matters show. Today, or right now, we've got Charles Heller from the Arizona Citizens Defense League and the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership here with us, and he's here to tell us a little bit about himself and his story with the Second Amendment advocacy, and then, of course, the two groups that he represents. So I know Charles is also a radio show host, so I don't think I need to do too much more introduction here. We're good friends. We've known each other for a long time. We're both here in Tucson, Arizona. And with that, Charles, could you give us some information about yourself and Arizona?
I never met this man. I don't know who he is. Pete, it's good to hear your voice.
We live like what, 2 miles from each other, and we end up
less
on the computer more
right,
than you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We end up staring at our gadgets. You know, it shouldn't be the men who stare at goats. It should be the men who stare at phones.
Yeah.
Anyway, you wanted to ask me.
Again, about yourself. So maybe a little bit about how you got into Second Amendment advocacy, or how it fell into your lap, perhaps. And then a bit about, well, I guess I always say Arizona Citizens Defense League, but I have to remember that you're representative for two groups, one national level group, and then one of the most recognized state level groups. And not just a representative, but you're one of the key founders. So we have an open format here. We can go as long as you've got time for, but I know that's kind of a big thing to talk about. But maybe let's start with you yourself.
Sure.
You're a radio show but how'd you get into advocacy?
I was raised in Chicago, and I am a political refugee from Chicago for the right to keep and bear arms. I would stupidly at age 21 have registered a gun as they required in Chicago. And the scam in Chicago was, okay, you can have any gun you want as long as it's registered. Okay, here's my registration. Sorry, we don't accept those. And that, in essence, was what the McDonald lawsuit was about, is forcing the city of Chicago to accept a registration so that a person could have the gun legally. And that's what the McDonald decision did, but not until 2010. And this was back in 1978. So I came to a free state where people could pack iron on their hip if they felt like doing so. And later on, we even fixed it so you could carry concealed with a permit. And then we fixed it so we didn't, the Citizens Defense League didn't. That happened in 94 before we existed. But in 2005, we formed with the idea of fixing it so you no longer had to get the stupid permit. You could get it if you wanted for the benefits that it offers of reciprocity and the ease of purchasing a firearm and not having to do the background check, but it was optional. And that's what our goal was in forming the Citizens Defense League. Along the way, I became more and more active in gun rights organizations. I was a member of Grassroots, which was a distant predecessor of, not related to, but another group with footprints in the same area of right to keep and bear arms. But Grassroots wasn't as well organized as the Citizens Defense League became, and it dried up and blew away eventually after winning a national award from the same organization that gave us an award, the Second Amendment Foundation. But we formed the Arizona Citizens Defense League in 2005. We succeeded in reaching our main goal, which was constitutional carry, in 2010. And because of that, I got noticed because I was their communications coordinator. I got noticed by the folks the committee running the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, because in 2010 Aaron Zellman had passed away, and in 2011 I was appointed as the executive director to replace Aaron Zellman by JPFO. So that's kind of how I got to both. The short version thereof, but nonetheless the same.
I know you're definitely
JPFO.
Hold on, I got another thing running over here. Facebook. It's always Facebook. I know that you've probably told that story more than a couple of times. This audience, I'm hoping, is a bit more concentrated activists and people that are interested in getting the fight out there, or being part of the fight. So maybe we can focus a bit more on, again, I know you don't like to toot your own horn, but again, we have constitutional carry here in Arizona, and that's a pretty cool thing. That means that is just a regular person who has the legal ability to own a firearm. In other words, you're not one of the few people that are federally prohibited from owning a firearm. You can carry a firearm in any way that suits your fancy, pretty much anywhere, except from someone else's personal property and a couple of state places where because of your efforts,
there's no crime in carrying it on someone else's personal property either. There's nothing you could be charged with.
Sometimes if they complain, but basically we have a very open, very individual freedom oriented system here, and a lot of people look to that and say either I wish our state would get to that, or I can't wait till our state gets to that, or our state's doomed, we'll never get to that. But what you're talking about is a situation that we have here in Arizona that was 100% contributed to a conversation at a Waffle House, right? By what?
No, the five and diner.
Okay, sorry, the Five and Diner. But literally, a conversation got sparked, and a couple of guys that were out of towners. I talked to Fred, and he heard the interview guy, but I think we can mention Fred's story.
Sure.
Him and from Virginia, another state that is basically not as firearms friendly. He expected Arizona to be one way, and when it wasn't, he and yourselves decided, let's change that. And you guys did affect that change. And again, now we're a state that gets looked up to as the example. And I just want to make clear to people that that's the efforts of 4 guys with a lot of participation, but the 4, just some dedication and some interest in reaching a goal of 4 individuals. So I think that, again, we're talking to aspiring activists out there. We're all able to do something like this, to achieve this kind of, there's a lot of states out there. We're all able to work towards this. Sean is another example, Florida Carry. A couple of guys started that out. It became large, and it's very large, and it's getting larger, but it doesn't take much to get that ball rolling, right? And I don't want to discredit your work. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of work and time and knowledge.
It took an awful lot to get it. I mean, just to start the ball rolling, it did not take a lot. You're right. However, it certainly took a lot of concerted work, lobbying efforts. We have 2 full-time lobbyists in Arizona's legislature that are there every day. It's open, and some that it's not. And we, formed legislative relationships and forged a relationship with the governor and many other things. It just along the way, and then we let activists we let people who wanted to take responsibility float up to their level of activism as per their own choice. We let people sort of set their own levels, and we had a tremendous activist in Mark. Oh gosh, his last name. Oh, how terrible! I can't think of it. He passed away last year, or 2 years ago. Mark, can you remember his name?
I can, but I'm trying. It's because I'm trying to think, though.
Spencer. Mark Spencer. Mark Spencer was a fantastic activist. I recruited him at a gun show at the fairgrounds about 6 or 7 years ago in Phoenix at an SAR show, and he began to listen to me. And he said, "Well, I want to do more." And so pretty soon he was volunteering at the tables. Pretty soon he learned how to be effective at that, and then pretty soon after that he said, "I want to do more," and he became a coordinator. So he helped find other volunteers and teach them. And pretty soon, without even telling us, he was going to gun shows out of state and setting up the table and recruiting people and coming home with 20 or 25 applications in his hand with the money. And it's pretty awesome. And guys like that just sort of floated into leadership. We've got a leadership list of about 260 people who are sort of in the brain trust of AzCDL, who advise the board directly on a leadership list. And we've grown and had growing pains, and we've networked. We've developed certain tools for activism, among them being our alerts list. We subscribe to the Enhance alerts list, where we can send out an email. It goes to 15,000 people with a preset letter to write to their representative, and all they have to do is type in their address, and it knows where they are and who to send it to, and we get it done.
So one of the questions that I wanted to do in these introductions to the various gun owners' rights groups is to ask what your campaigns are and what your resources are, and that's a big one for Arizona Citizens Defense League. And it's not and from what I'm told, it's basically the same thing that like a Bloomberg would use when he comes down and can just pay for it. This is something that's out of reach of most state level organizations for sure.
Well, we have about 13,800 members. We're going to go over 14,000 before the SAR show, I think, this year. And we're, when you got people sending you the equivalent of $30 or $40 a year, you got a budget. It's not a huge budget. We don't have any paid employees. We have a contract for lobbying. But other than that, we don't have a single paid employee. We have all volunteer staff. And our money goes to those things like the Engage system, which costs us, I think, better part of $7,500 a year, maybe a little more than that. And we've got, the expenses of 2 offices, which are both located in people's homes. So only the expenses of the actual office, not any rental or anything like that.
Well,
I'm sorry, what?
I've been in Fred's office, and I can attest that it's not an elaborate.
No, it's an upstairs room in his house.
Exactly, it's in his living room.
Yeah. So, but I mean, we squeeze the nickel until the buffalo defecates, and then a little harder till it bleeds. For just slightly. 225,000 a year, probably closer to 300,000 a year. We run an entire organization, the whole state, with tables at every single gun show in the state, and many tea parties and other likely similar events for, like I say, under 300,000 a year for everything. And we give away tons of collateral literature, all kinds of literature, all kinds of ad specialty items. We sell shirts and hats. Helps us finance our mission. And, we take donations. It's AzCDL.org.
Yep, we have links in the description of the show here, and where the podcast, you'll have links in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to do JPFO as a separate introduction, or should we include them together?
Well, we can include them together. I'm sure the people who tune into this are astute enough to figure out that they're 2 separate organizations.
Right, so we were talking about the Arizona Citizens Defense League, obviously a state-level organization. And before we move on, I just wanted to put something else in my notes as we're going along here. Again, if we want to encourage people that are thinking or debating whether or not it's worth putting in that effort, and I think your story about kind of almost randomly coming across somebody at a gun show, and again, deliberate, consistent effort, showing up at gun shows and getting the word out there, you came across someone who turned out to be a diamond, right?
Right, Mark Spencer, and I'm terribly sorry for forgetting his name. He deserves to be remembered in perpetuity in this organization.
So it's the kind of thing where it's that stand on the shoulder. So if you can get out there and do what you can do, you might enable somebody who's able to do even more or has more resources to get on board as well. And I would also mention that you guys you've cut the way on a lot of this stuff, and you're more than happy. I'm sure you've already brought up Florida Carry, we mentioned. They emulated you. You guys emulated Virginia Carry, right? Or Virginia Citizens Defense League.
Right.
So some of this work has already been done, and there's a lot of collaboration that goes on. So if you're a struggling state-level organization and you need some help, I'm sure you could reach out and get some counseling and some mentorship from some of these organizations that exist.
Yeah, well, we stole our bylaws from the Virginia Citizens Defense League, and there's a funny story with that. The secretary of the VCDL came up to me at a gun rights policy conference, knowing that I was the secretary at the time. I've since stepped off the board and become an officer of the corporation, but I stepped off the board to allow others to come up. But at the time, I was secretary, and she knew I was secretary. She says, "Say, Charles, we can't seem to find our bylaws. Can you send us yours?" We know they started with ours. I said, yeah, but we improved them a whole bunch. And they said, fine, and those are now their bylaws. It's all my life's a circle, Yeah,
and that's evolution, right? As we stand on the shoulders, we see another way to reach, and then we pull them up and let them stand on ours.
Well, it's kind of funny. We were standing on their shoulders, and now they're standing on ours. So, all right, we're going to have a lot of sore shoulders when it's all done with.
Makes us all stronger, right?
Yeah.
So we're not just paying to ride the escalator like the Bloomberg.
Yeah, but we're going to get over the wall by doing so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then we're going to talk.
I don't know if we ought to be talking about a wall in this political climate.
And yes, both you gentlemen are in Arizona, so I defer to your discretion.
Yeah, no problem. Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Hawaii. I'm on Maui.
Oh, wow. I'm glad you live in such a beautiful place, and I mourn for the loss of your rights.
Yes, as do I.
Yeah.
So now let's pivot and talk about JPFO, which is a national level organization, but also one that's been around since the 70s?
Actually, since 1989.
89. Okay, so decades old. It's one of the foundations at the federal level. Can you tell us about the JPFO?
JPFO is a 501c3. In essence, JPFO is a publisher. We're not an activist organization per se. We're a publishing organization. And Pete, go look out your window right now.
Okay.
That sunset is a 10.
That's why we live in Arizona.
Yeah, that is. That's a 10. All right, to answer your question, JPFO was created in 1989 by Aaron Zellman of blessed memory. Aaron was a very, very committed, purist type of activist. His positions made the NRA look soft. And he was just very committed and very dead on about right to keep and bear arms. He was dead set against concealed weapons permits. He viewed them as an infringement. And JPFO still takes and holds that position, so that that you shouldn't need a permit. It should be like here in Arizona and Maine and Arkansas and Kansas and a few other states that I can't think of off the tip of my tongue, Vermont, that are, you know, if you want to carry a gun, you carry a gun. You don't have to ask anybody. So, and and Aaron led the organization. He did a very good job of leading the organization, both in terms of fundraising and spiritually. And he passed away in 2010, and I was appointed for 2.5 years to continue on in his stead and keep the organization floating, but it couldn't sustain itself with the model that was adopted while Aaron was alive, for the simple reason that JPFO lived in his house, and as soon as they had to go outside the house and rent space for it, the model collapsed. It became too expensive to run it. So rather than see it die, Bob Meyer, the lead board member on it, arranged with Alan Gottlieb of the Second Amendment Foundation to rescue JPFO, take it over, and have it live under the corporate wing of the Second Amendment Foundation, which it now does in Washington State, in Bellevue, Washington. So that's kind of, and I am still its media coordinator and its public voice. It's communications coordinator, same as I am for the Citizens Defense League, and I'm not paid for the job at all, and I'm paid for neither of them. You there?
Yeah, I was out taking a picture of that sunset. Yeah. Maybe you could touch on something that you brought up there as far as the JPFO being a publisher. That's something that I'm hoping to accomplish with the Every Second Matters project. We do a lot of these live chats where you've been in them, where you talk and we just have kind of open discussion on gun-related and advocacy-oriented Second Amendment stuff. And we end up like shaking our fists at the NRA, or we wonder why so many national organizations exist, but we still have no one like pushing towards, or at least the perception that no one's pushing towards the Hughes Amendment or something else. And then when I went to the Gun Rights Policy Conference, I found out that, well, number one, there's groups like the NFA Freedom Alliance that is working towards getting rid of the Hughes Amendment. I just didn't know about it, and Todd is here in Tucson, right? So
right, yeah, he is.
Eye-opening going on. And I thought I was on top of things. So I guess one of the aspects of it that I was brought to light, or became aware of, is that, and I'm working with Arizona Citizens Defense League now, your hands are kind of tied. When you're a nonprofit, because of the way the corporations and stuff are structured and tax laws and stuff, like you mentioned, they're a publisher. AzCDL, we're not lobbyists. We have to have another lobbying group to be lobbyists. Is that how?
No. AzCDL absolutely are lobbyists.
Okay, but if
but
we
we're not a
we would need another thing, or if we were going to become going towards something else, we would need to basically create another entity.
Well, if we wanted to have a nonprofit, which we do, and we're going to form one, another nonprofit that's a 501c3, that's an educational foundation. They can't lobby. We do lobby at the Citizens Defense League. We're a 501c4, and the C4 means that you can do issues, you can't do candidates. And we don't do candidates. We do issues, and at the Citizens Defense League. On the other hand, with the with JPFO, we're not lobbyists, and we were never made to be activists. We were made to be publishers. We publish, we're the ones that did the background work that discovered, in the modern era, that discovered that the 1968 Gun Control Act was based on the 1938 Nazi weapons law. We're the ones that did the research on that while Aaron Zellman was still alive, and they wrote a book about it. So that's kind of what we do. That's the JPFO is different than Arizona Citizens Defense League in that regard.
I imagine that finding that particular kernel out ignited a passion to further your aims.
Well, certainly the passion was already pretty well ignited, but what it did was it gave us rocket fuel to get the message out to the rest of the right to keep and bear arms world. So Aaron was already pretty well on fire when he found that out. But what he did then was he told the world about it, and it's been written up in several books. One of them called Lethal Laws, and I forget the title of the other one, but there's been at least 2 books published on it. Plus that fact has been referenced by a lot of people, not the least of whom was L. Neil Smith in a targeted mailing he did only yesterday or maybe earlier today.
Well, talking about JPFO, I'd say my personal experience with it is that it was one of the organizations when I saw their marketing stuff, or I don't know what you call it, your educational materials.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably with Firing Pin. You know, he sets up some books and stuff at the gun shows. Probably pick something up because he'll have it there for, take it kind of stuff. And I'm, who isn't going to take something free at a gun show? But I think it was kind of in your face. I mean, you guys call it the in your face gun lobby, right, or something like that.
Yeah.
The fact that it was like so blatant, I guess, and I was like, wow, they're not beating around the bush on none of this, and it was that slap in the face that I guess I didn't even know I needed, and it was one of those things where I was like, wow, I'm kind of sleeping through this. So I know that it was a long time ago, but it definitely I can still remember it was one of the things that kind of got me aware that there's more than just ammo and magazines to worry about when we're talking about firearms.
Oh yeah, JPFO is America's most strident self-defense civil rights organization. You won't find anybody that's, shall we say, to the right of us.
Well, Charles, I know that I'm echoing the appreciation of all of our viewers when I say thanks for doing what you're doing, and thanks specifically for taking the time to do this show today. I'm hoping that this becomes, I'm willing to put in the time and the effort to make this into a platform that can become a abbreviated version of the Gun Rights Policy Conference every month, so that basically I think my overall goal would be if I can help to distribute the resources of the Second Amendment advocates out here to the groups that are already that have already established precedents in getting things done, and help to clear up some of the confusion that can happen when there's so much noise now with the internet, and we're still getting our sea legs and filtering that noise. If we can help to filter some of that and get the resources distributed, if we become a less advantageous political opponent, if they know that we can really accomplish some resistance to no matter how much money they can throw at it, I think that we can really accomplish something with just a bit of individual effort that we're already putting forth, just a little bit of guided effort. We can really put up a resistance that makes them go on to the next thing. I really do think that if we pointed them at deaths in pools, no one gets scorned. I saw this analogy the other day. No one gets scorned for liking high diving at the Olympics or liking speed swimming at the Olympics because so many children die in home swimming pools, right? There's no connotation about liking NASCAR because there's so many drunk drivers. So if we can show them that we have a ability to resist their tyranny, then I think they're going to move on. There's plenty of other places where they can get their fame and their fortune. Leave us alone.
Well, the war against guns is done on the basis of religious zealotry. It becomes their religion. And send me that picture you just took.
Will do. Yeah, I'm going to go post it right now.
Yeah.
But again, thanks for joining us, and hopefully you'll join us on the 2nd. I know that you've got a busy schedule between your 9 to 5 and all your your work, but the second kind of falls on a different day of the week each month. So perhaps it'll fall on a time when you can join us, and I'll run it into the evening, so hopefully you can join us at this time frame as well.
Sure, and just give me a heads up, either by text or by phone. Let me also, if people want to get in touch with me directly about either JPFO or the Arizona Citizens Defense League, they can contact me through my name, Charles Heller, Heller, common spelling of Charles Heller, at jpfo.org. That's Charles Heller at jpfo.org, or Charles Heller at AzCDL.org.
Thanks again, Charles, for everything you do, and I'll let Z end us out.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
It was not where I got that.
I had no idea. Yeah, I just don't know what to say. Thank you, Charles, for everything that you do and everything that you guys have accomplished and everything like that. Definitely enjoy listening in on your shows on Sundays. And then out here, it's a Sunday morning for me, and Tanker Grands rule.
No.
Oh, I didn't even mention that I've got the 2 people I know that own Tanker Grands in the same chat.
Make it 3.
I don't own one. No, I'm saying
I do.
No, I'm saying you 2 are the only 2 I know that have them right now. So
That's interesting. Did you know I had a Tanker Grand, the gentleman in Hawaii?
Yes, sir. We had discussed it one other time. You may have been in a chat with me.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's a 308 Tankerized Grand, yeah. But it's also opened up to take the M1 box magazine, so it is I call it a Grand field.
That is nice. I like that.
Yeah.
I was talking about doing that conversion, right?
Yes, I would definitely like to.
So maybe we'll have a discussion sometime on the grant.
You take my email address and contact me off this discussion string, and I'll let you go paw it over.
Right on. Right. Oh, maybe I should do a video so that Z can take a look at it, and that way you can kind of.
You took some pictures of me shooting it one time.
Oh yeah, a couple of times. We used to take it up on the hill when we would drive up to the 3 shooting spots up there and walk down that ridge.
Right.
That was back when PMags were first out. Remember, I was kicking a PMag around because that was the first PMag we got a hold of. That was a while ago.
Yeah, it's a bit. All right. You have a good day.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Aloha.